going to be speaking to you not only as a microfinance practitioner, but also as a microfinance institution owner. So I set up, because of the passion I have for the industry, I set up an MFI, precisely August 2018. We started our operations August 2018. But before then, I've been doing it in an unofficial manner. What do I mean? Getting capital, as in getting, from salaries, try to, advance to people, you understand? And then before you know it, I said, no, there's need for me to make this, standardized, official. So I set up one. I'm going to take us through how I started and where we are today. So I started 2018, just like I mentioned, and the name of the MFI is Osifin Limited. So you can Google us to find out. Also, we currently have an office in Ojuelegba Road, like somewhere around Yaba. Okay, so we started with a very, very low, small amount from Mr. Henry's introduction. He tries to let us know that you don't have to have all the monies before you can actually embark on a particular project. So I am a living example. I started an MFI with with a capital slightly above 3 million naira. The story 3 years down the line today has changed. And if time permit me, I would tell us what our balance sheet size is looking at today. Just a space of 3 years. So it's a business that, once the passion is there, it's a business that is worth embarking upon. And so thank you again for Henry for putting this together. And I'm sure this is will be the investor's perspective. Investors' perspective. Okay, so because I know sharing this knowledge will be more useful to investors, would be investors who would like to go into the business. So straight to the slides. Who is a money lender? The money lender is a person or a group of persons or an institution that grants credit, loans, or finances to a borrower to enable the borrower to finance their consumption, their investments, or their personal needs. Okay, so that is what, going by the definition, what that is who a money lender is. So a money lender can be an individual. A money lender can be a group of individuals. Money lender can be an institution. Just like I mentioned, Osifin Limited is an institution solely set up to grant loans, okay, to borrowers at, there would be their decided rates, okay? So that is who a money lender is. So for you to be a player in the money lending industry, there are some things, there are some parameters, or there are some variables or things that you need to understand in the industry. So you need to understand basically market research and feasibility studies. What do I mean? You need to embark upon some studies to know what or who should be your targeted market. Henry, can you kindly help move to the next slide? The next slide. So you need to know who your target market is. So you don't we in Osifin, I'm going to be using a whole lot of example from Osifin because that is the practical aspect of it. We in Osifin, okay, so we grant loans to, majorly traders. That doesn't mean we don't grant loans to salary earners, but we have carried out feasibility study and market research, and we understand the type of loans we should do in those things. So we grant more of our loans, like above 90% of our loans, to traders, buying and selling, people into buying and selling. So you also need to understand demographics and psychographics in the lending industry. So you need to understand the population, okay? Your target market, after identifying the kind of loans you want to do. If it is salary loans you want to specialize in, if it is buying and selling loans you want to be financing. So after doing that, you also need to, go further to create a niche for yourself. Do you want to do more? Do you want to be advancing more of your loans to male customers, or you want to advance most of your loans to female customers, or you want to blend it? So it depends. Okay, so you make that decision. Lapo, who happens to be a flagship of micro lending in Nigeria. When I say flagship, I mean those who were at the forefront, who actually started. Those are among the very few, who started and still, relevant today in the industry are Lapo. And so if you would agree with me, majority of Lapo customers are female. So there's a reason for that. Okay, there's a reason for that. So you need to understand what your demographic will look like. So for us, unfortunately for us in Osifin, ours is an opposite to what Lapo is doing. More of our customer are male, compared to what Lapo is doing. More of Lapo's clients are, female. Okay, so the next you need to understand is the level of competition in the industry. What do I mean? There is stiff competition in the industry, so which of course will, force people to sort of being regulated, though an MFI is not regulated by CBN, okay, so to say, because you don't play with public funds. So MFIs are not regulated by CBN, rather they are regulated by, Lagos State government, specifically Ministry of Home Affairs, okay, actually regulates MFIs, okay. So, but because of the number of investors that are trooping into the industry, into the sector, okay, so there's a kind of competition. So you need to find out how to be competitively, how to place yourself to constantly be to be at a competitive advantage over your competitors. So you need to, set up strategy that could help you to be at a competitive advantage over your competitors. It might be your pricing, it might be your location, it might be your processing fee, it might be, so just, it's left to you to make that decision. But always ensure the decisions you make would be the one that would, the type that would make you to constantly be at competitive edge over your competitors. So the technical and manpower details are also another thing you need to understand when you're going into, lending business. The technical and manpower details. So some people and some MFIs set up, and then before you know it, they employ numerous number of staffs that might not be needed. When you're starting an MFI, you don't need a whole lot, staff to start with. Okay, you don't need a whole lot of staff to start with. All right, so just need few staff to start with. Okay, so as time goes on, by the time your activity increase or improves compared to when you started, then if there is need for you to, increase your manpower, then why not? Okay, but at start, you don't need that, because that is capable of putting you under unnecessary pressure. What do I mean by unnecessary pressure? staff cost is the highest cost. Staff cost is the highest component of, overheads that an MFI or an MFB, so to say, have. Okay, so if you're not careful, that's capable of, eroding on the little, profits you make. So you need to be careful in respect to engaging too many, manpower at the start stage. Okay, so the next will be understanding the marketing ideas and strategies. Okay, I think I've speak to this briefly. So understanding the marketing ideas and strategies. So you need to drop strategies that would help you. Just as I was saying earlier, you need to, position at all time. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so marketing ideas.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the feedback. So marketing ideas, so you need to try as much as possible to design good products that, of course, will make you to be at a competitive advantage. When I say good products, so it depends the type of loans you want to be advancing. For us, noticing that most of our loans are, buying and selling loans. So we have so many products that we've, designed, okay, that has helped us. So you design some products that will be streamlined to your niche, okay, to your niche. And then you drop some strategies that will help you to, achieve such. Okay, so that is that. But do not forget your pricing is key. Your pricing has to be competitive. When I say your pricing, I mean your interest rate has to be competitive. Your processing fee has to be competitive. If you are the type, or if you are the investor or an MFI who choose to have or request for 10% equity contribution before you can advance a loan, or say 5% equity contribution or 20% equity contribution, you need to explain to your client why that is part of your policy. You don't have to say, so it is our policy and that is how it has to be. You have to explain to them why it is so. Okay, so for us in Microfinance, we have a policy of you always, dropping 10% of whatever amount you want to assess as a loan before we can grant you a loan. Okay, so some take 5%, some 20%. It depends. Okay, so all of that, your pricing and other models would, so you need to define those, all of these well at your start stage. And of course, if there's need, you can always review them as you advance in the business. So I'm going to be sharing with us some money lending facts that you need to know. Money lending facts. Okay, so the CBN is not required to engage in money lending in Nigeria. Just like I mentioned earlier, CBN doesn't have any business with MFI, microfinance institutions. Okay, so you don't have anything to worry about in respect to, oh, CBN is coming for year-round or year-end, audit or what have you, or CBN regulations, hinders me from doing this or stops us from doing that. So that is not the case in an MFI. That is only the case for MFB. So for MFI, you don't have to worry about that, so long you are not trading with the public fund. So trading with the public fund is the thin line that distinguishes an MFI from an MFB, together with other distinguishing features. However, the most important is trading with public fund. What do I mean by trading with public fund? Accepting deposits from the public. So long you are not accepting deposits from the public, you are an MFI and you are not regulated by CBN, together with other features that distinguishes MFI from MFB. Okay, so CBN is not required to engage in money lending activities in Nigeria. Okay, so the next is a money lender company can engage in consumer and commercial lending in Nigeria. Of course, I mentioned that earlier. Can engage in consumer lending. You can also engage in commercial lending. Consumer lending is basically lending to attend to personal needs. Okay, so lending that has to do with attending to personal needs. Okay, so while commercial lending is lending that has to do with refinancing business. Okay, so for an MFI, you are at liberty to finance both consumer lending and commercial lending. The next is the CBN Finance Company License. That is the CBN Finance Company. Company license can also be used in lieu of money lending license to engage in consumer lending. Of course, I've mentioned that earlier. So the money lending license are issued by various states in Nigeria. So various states has different ministries that issue money lending licenses. But for Lagos State that we operate in Osifin, money lending license is being given by a ministry called Ministry of Home Affairs, in Lagos State, and they are situated in Alausa. Okay, so they are responsible for giving out money lending licenses, without which you cannot operate. Okay, so the next is some states, especially Ogun State of Nigeria, require such company incorporation documents must reflect that the company office is located within their state. What do I mean? Well, this is also the case in Lagos State, because they expect you to, before you can successfully get an MFI license, a money lending license, okay, you must have an evidence of company incorporation, okay, and that must be a limited liability company, okay. So that is also the case in Lagos State, and I'm sure that's also the case in most of the states in the federation, okay. But at least I can speak to Lagos and Ogun State for sure that the company must be incorporated before you can be granted the license, okay. So the next is a money lending license lasts between January to December, and as such, it must be renewed annually, okay. So the license is renewable every year, and it is for a period of 12 months. You're expected to renew it every January. Anyone trying to ask a question?
No, I think there was a audio at the background. I've muted it. You can continue. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Henry. Okay, so money lending license is renewable every year. Okay, it's renewable every year. So the Olumide would handle the technicality involved in doing that. A licensed money lender cannot receive deposits or savings from member of the public. Any company wishes to receive deposits should opt for a microfinance bank license issued by CBN. Okay, so I've speak to this before. For you to be an MFI, you don't have any business in picking or accepting deposits from the members of the public. If you are interested in accepting deposits from members of the public, thereby using that to fund your lending, then you might want to, go for an MFB license and not an MFI license. Okay, so a money lending company is not restricted by any law from carrying out its activities via online. Of course, we have several of MFIs who are currently into fintech. We have several of them who, of course, do not have a CBN license to operate. That is, who are not currently MFBs, but they are actually a fintech company. Okay, and so what is the difference between a fintech and a regular MFI? So just your ability to rely on technology to give loans and to accept and to receive back your repayments. Okay, so that is the major difference between a fintech and a regular MFI. So for you to be an MFI, you can actually play in fintech industry. So that is another advantage of an MFI. So at least for now, to my best of knowledge, an MFI is not restricted from, upgrading to becoming a fintech operator in Nigeria as of today. Okay, so the money lending company obtained license in all states it intends to open physical office. Yes. As OCFIN is currently operating in Lagos State, if we choose to spread to Ogun State, the onus lies on us to get an operating license in Ogun State. What do I mean? Lagos State license do not cover us to operate in Ogun State, meaning we are mandated to get a money lending license in Ogun State before we can, commence our operation in Ogun State. And so is also the case if we choose to spread to the east. Of course, this is one of our long-term, goal or vision. Okay, so a foreign company wishing to participate in money lending in any state in Nigeria must register a separate entity in Nigeria, because only company duly registered in Nigeria can participate in any business in Nigeria in line with Companies and Allied Matters Act. Okay, so I think I've also mentioned this. So this is also applicable to a foreign investor who would like to come and invest in Nigeria. Okay, so for you, for a foreign investor, if a foreign investor is also expected to register an incorporated company in Nigeria before they can be granted a license to operate as an MFI. And kindly help me to the next slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is the major facts I would like to intimate us in respect to MFI operations in Nigeria. So there are some rights of the money lender. So let me just take us through some basic rights the money lender has. The money lending license in Nigeria can be used for consumer and commercial lending in Nigeria. I think I've mentioned this earlier. So if you have a money lending license, you are at liberty to either grant consumer lending or also grant commercial lending, or both. Nothing stops you from granting both. For us in OCFIN, we grant both consumer lending and commercial lending. Okay, so another right that the money lender has is the money lending law of the different states regulates and provides for the procedure for money lending license in Nigeria. This is clear. It means you are at liberty to set your interest rates, your processing fee, your modus operandi. It's left to you to decide how you want to run your business. It is totally your prerogative to decide what lending rates you want to apply, what processing fee you want to apply, what equity contribution that you want to accept from customer, and what have you. You can choose to say you want to charge 20% per month. It's left to you to get clients that will accept loans from you for 20%. If you can convince a client to take loan at 20% per month, lucky you, no ceiling whatsoever. Okay, is you don't have any ceiling to operate. However, I stated earlier that for you to be at a competitive advantage, you have to your pricing has to be competitive, and if your pricing has to be competitive, you have to benchmark your rates with what is obtainable in the industry. So you need to put that into consideration. However, you do not have any ceiling. You can decide to fix your rates as it pleases you. Okay, so the money lending license can be obtained in each 36 states of Nigeria and Federal Capital Territory. Okay, so yes, even though we know requirements to obtain money lending license differs, from one state to the other. However, it is as it is obtainable in Lagos State, as a money lending license is obtainable in Lagos State, so it's also obtainable in other states. However, the process to get the licenses will differ per state, okay? But you are at liberty to get, you can, money lending license is obtainable in all states of the Federation, including FCT. So for an individual or maybe organization to be a reputable money lender, the person or perhaps the organization must obtain the money lender license to perform such work in Nigeria. This has been, has been mentioned already. So all of these are your basic rights as a money lender. Okay, so you don't have a ceiling. You can fix your rates, you can fix your interest rates, you can fix your processing fee rates, you can fix your equity contribution and other things. Okay, so as it pleases you. Okay, so all of that are your rights as a money lender, and also you can choose to lend for consumption or also lend for commercial for business purpose. So or both. Okay, so that is that as to the rights you have as a money lender. So the last on my slide, Mr. Henry, kindly help me to the last slide. Benefits of operating a lending business. Among the positive aspects of becoming a licensed money lender is the fact that a money lender is able to exercise the rights of its institution, of instituting an action in court to recover the principal mortgage and accrued interest from a defaulting borrower. So what do I mean here? If OCFIN is not licensed to operate an MFI, we'll be shooting ourselves on the leg. What do I mean? So we might be lucky to have all our loans granted, returned back to us in terms of repayment. However, if we have a defaulting customer and then we have to institute a legal action, sorry, we will not be able to. Why? Because we do not have a license that actually covers us to run that business. However, an MFI who has a money lending license have the legal right to institute a legal action against a defaulting client in order to recover its principal and also its accrued interest. But for an MFI who is not licensed, of course, is dead on arrival, cannot institute any legal action. So which means you might have to go through the window of moral suasion. You need to continue to, be at the mercy of your clients to get your repayments come in. If you are not lucky, your principal might, go for it. So I think that is the major benefit an MFI who has a practicing license or an operating license would have over those who do not. Because of course, unless I want to deceive you, we have so many operators out there who do not have money lending license, who of course operate, but they're shooting themselves on the foot. In the rainy days, if anything happens, they stand a chance of losing their principal. Thank you very much. Let me stop here while I entertain questions. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. We really appreciate that. Do we have any question for Mr. Stanley?
Yes, it's about the fintech. I didn't really understand. I was distracted a little when he was talking about fintech. I want to understand. I think he's on the third slide or so. I don't know.
Okay. So fintech, like I was saying, is ability to leverage on technologies to make or to help ability to leverage on technologies for financial inclusion. So to say. So what do I mean by financial inclusion? Bringing the underbanked and the unbanked into financial, services. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be lending. It might be just a channel with which to transact, maybe to transfer money from a sender to a receiver, or probably people in the remote area who do not have banks, of course. Okay, so your ability to use fintech from an urban area to transfer money to a rural area. Okay, and then the recipient uses the same locomotive phone, doesn't necessarily have to be an Android phone, to transact, to buy or to sell, okay, their goods or their services. So also is the case of lending. So ability of an MFI to leverage on technologies to grant loans and to receive their repayments. Okay, so that is what fintech does. So fintech is ability to leverage on technologies to drive financial inclusion. Financial inclusion do not necessarily have to be lending alone.
Okay.
Okay, so that is what fintech does for you.
And again, those are
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
I really appreciate.
Yeah, we'll be
Okay, Mr. Stanley.
Yeah, Uzabaka will be dealing into that topic later on. We'll be dwelling more on it again. So just take.
Okay, sir.
Hello, Mr.
Henry. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Stanley.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, is that Damilola?
Emmanuel, please.
Okay. Okay, I can
Hello.
see Damilola, Egbete, and Emmanuel.
Yes.
Okay, let's take it one after a time. Emmanuel, please.
Okay, sir.
Okay, Mr. Emmanuel, before we speak, Mr. Emmanuel is one of our prestigious MDs. Let me let him talk. I'll introduce him later. You can continue, Mr. Emmanuel.
Hear me.
All right.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. My question is this. I know as an MFI. So,
Your network,
Emmanuel, you are breaking, sir.
Emmanuel.
my network is down. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, but your network is bad, Emmanuel. Can you type it? Send it as a chat. Let me read it out.
I'll type my question.
Type it in the chat box. Let me read it out.
All right.
All right. Damilola, let's take your question.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. So my question is, can MFI can they register as a limited liability, or they must go through what's it called, NGO, for them to start a lending business? That is one. And secondly, is it applicable that we have the money lending license before we can start operation at all, or is something that we can start after registering the MFI or an NGO, as the case may be? It's something that we can start without, then later on we can get the lending license in the state we want to start operation. That is the question.
Okay, so thank you very much. To take the first question, that I know, you must have a company incorporated and not a business name. You know, we have business name, which is enterprise, and we have limited liability company. I don't know for an NGO, but at least I can speak to these two. For OCFIN, when we started at first, we opened an enterprise, which is business name registration, OCFIN Professional Services. So at the point when we start, we want to get an operating license, we were asked to go and register a limited liability company, that we cannot use an enterprise to get a money lending license in Lagos State. So we have to go back to incorporate the company. So what do we mean? We change the name from OCFIN Professional Services now to OCFIN Limited. So for you to operate or to get a money lending license in Lagos State, your business has to be incorporated. That is a limited liability company. I can't really speak to an NGO because I'm not, made that inquiry. But for limited liability company and enterprise, yes, an enterprise will not fly. The limited liability will fly. However, for the sake of when we started at OCFIN, we've commenced operation before we actually start the process of getting license. So I think that answers your question. So you can start, but it's best to get your license before you start. But if you think you are in a hurry to start while you embark on getting your license concurrently. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I have another question. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. What would be the objective of the company, of the limited liability company? In the sense that, I understand that if you want to register a company as a limited liability company and you want to go into lending, the objective of that of your company should be, as in, is it necessary that we specify it as a money lending business, or
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Not in order not to waste time. The clause in the business of money lending is a must to be part of your object clause. You have so many object clause, maybe 2, 3, or 4, or 5, depending on what you want to do. However, the first in your object clause has to be in the business of money lending. If it's not there, they won't incorporate your business. They ask you to go back to CAC and amend your object clause before you can come back to them. So it is a must. The business of lending has to be part of your object clause. Object clauses.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Stanley. Let me take Mr. Emmanuel Adia raised his hand and he asked this question: can an MFI run a thrift collection as a product? If yes, can that not be seen as mobilizing deposits? Mr. Stanley?
Thrift collection is not far from. I get your question. I get the question.
Okay.
I get the question. Thrift collection is not far from accepting deposits from the members of the public.
Exactly.
If you ask me, for you not to get your fingers burnt, do not even accept as a product. Do not make one of your products to be thrift collection, because there's no way. If you think no one is seeing you, you might not know when they would, actually, people might, finger you and then report to you, and then before you know it, you get your fingers burnt. So do not embark on it in the first place. Thrift collection, yes, you might say you are into AJO. AJO is accepting deposits, and you're an MFI. So we need to be careful. If you ask me, I will not
advise
that you accept it.
All right. Hello, sir. The next hand, please. We have Asukwo, we have Aka. Can we have your questions?
Okay, Mr. Stanley, thank you so much for your presentation. I really want to appreciate your bringing out this idea to us. I have 3 questions. One of my questions is this: if you register as a cooperative, can you also carry out the same activities? Number 1. Number 2 is that how do you set up your interest rate? Looking at and the markets, rate is being defined by supply and demand, and based on our registration, don't have the capacity as an FMB. So my question is, how do you try to streamline in terms of your interest rate, making it not too expensive, and also is affordable by the public? And thirdly, when I went to try to register to incorporate a company, I was asked that the share capital has to be about 15 to 20 million. I don't know if you can throw more light on that.
Thank you very much. I'll take it from the last. It doesn't necessarily, your share capital doesn't necessarily have to be 20 million for you to register a limited liability company that can fly for sake of getting license, an MFI license. So like OCFIN, what we have is just 1 million share capital and it fly. Okay. So for a cooperative, yes. So there's a ministry in Lagos State that grants cooperative license. So the difference between, of course, cooperative establishments give loans. However, their loans are only limited to their members and not to the members of the public. The last time I checked, although that doesn't mean that there's no sharp practices, okay? However, an MFI, you do not necessarily have to be a member before you can get a loan. So if I will still rank an MFI over and above a cooperative, okay? So, but for you to grant a MFI, money lender's license and cooperative license, of course, are similar because the end result is ability to be able to grant loans, right? However, so who you are granting the loans to is what distinguishes them. For a cooperative, the loan has to be granted to members of the cooperative. However, for an MFI, members of the public. So you can choose whichever you want. So for MFI, for OCFIN, our pricing has been so competitive. I would tell you that we compete with, our pricing is competitive with the major players. I would not like to mention them, but the major players, you will be wild to know that some of our interest rates are even in the windows of 3.5% per month, 4% per month, and as the case may be. And of course, you will agree with me that that is highly competitive compared to other MFIs that charge, 5%, 10%. And why did we do this? Why did we do that? The reason is simply because of my antecedents. I've been in the player for years. So for me to be able to buy over my existing customers, I have to, the rate I'll be granting to them has to be competitive. So we have to go down to what is obtainable where I was, where I worked, so we have to benchmark it with what we are currently offering. And of course, that is how we're able to, place ourselves competitively in the market. I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, that's a nice one. I have a question here from Dami. Dami asked before, and it's the same question coming from Uzamaka. Uzamaka says, can an MFI take deposit from investors interested in buying lands? And can an MFI lend money for land purchase? I think what she's trying to say here is differentiate between an investor and when an MFI is mobilizing deposit. And to me, having partnership is not a problem. But when you are mobilizing deposit from investors, from the general public, that's where the problem is. So if you have an MFI, if Mr. Stanley can help me out too, if you have an MFI, you have people that wants to partner, that wants to inject funds into the business. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Stanley, is that okay?
Okay, no, let me explain a little. Let me give an instance. Let's say I have some people who want to buy a land, and then on the other hand, they don't have the entire funds to buy that land. And I have an MFI, like a company that lends funds. And I now tell them, okay, you can be paying, let's say you can pay a certain amount of money over a period of time so that you can be able to afford this property that you want to buy. Can an MFI actually do that transaction? Is there any license that they need? I don't know. Don't know how to explain it. That's much.
Okay. So what scenario you just painted now is just speaking to a kind of a product. So it could be a part of your product. You might say, okay, so do not forget that for you to in an MFI, no one regulates you. So you don't have to go say these are my limitations. No, depends on you, depends on your risk appetite. So you can, why not? It could be one of your products that you designed. Okay, so yes, fine, you can, so long you have the financial muscle to, because for you, for land purchase repayments, that will be going into 2, 3, 4 years installments. Do you want to tie down your capital that you would have rolled over? You understand? Do not forget the major objective of the money lending is to make money. And making money, you should be able to, turn your capital over as much as possible, as frequent as possible within a year. Okay, so and that is why it is encouraged that loan facilities to granted by MFBs are usually within the space of 1 year, 12 months. That is usually the acceptable maximum period that you can, accept the payments from the customer. So that is that. However, investors are always welcome. In fact, investors will make it, unlike for us in Nosifin, the window is open for investors. So if you have loose fund and you want to invest, why not to come? We agree on what rates. Sorry, Henry, I'm not advertising here. I'm just trying to buttress our point.
I'm collecting commission. You should please.
So the window is open in Nosifin. You can invest if you have loose funds, and returns is always very, very high compared to any return on investment you are getting currently. Has to, for you to have real return on investment, it has to be over and above the current inflation rate. And currently, inflation rate in Nigeria is 17.3 or thereabouts. So we are offering far above that per annum. So the window is open for investors. So, and I will also advise would-be investors or would-be people who would want to set up an MFI to always keep the window open for investors. When you have investors, you have enough monies available in your custody to play with. And that would